Welcome to the Higher Ed Jobs Podcast, Ask the Expert Edition. I'm Andy Hibble, the Chief Operating Officer and one of the co-founders of Higher Ed Jobs.
And I'm Kelly Sherwin, the Director of Editorial Strategy. Today, we're joined by Daniel B. Griffith, a longtime Higher Ed Jobs contributing writer and author in residence, as well as a mediator, educator, lawyer, HR leader, and author with more than 30 years of experience helping professionals and organizations navigate conflict, communication, and workplace challenges. Dan specializes in mediation, negotiation, and conflict resolution across higher education, nonprofit, government, and business settings. His work focuses on helping individuals respond thoughtfully to difficult workplace situations, including moments of loss, transition, and uncertainty. Dan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Glad to be here, as always.
So, Dan, you recently wrote an article for us titled, "Am I a Victim of Age Discrimination? Separating Facts from Beliefs?" It was in response to a listener question that was submitted to us. So we're going to discuss this today, and I think it's actually going to resonate with a lot of people who are navigating workplace transitions and uncertainty. I recommend everyone to read the article if you're able to, which we'll link in the podcast notes. But Andy and I wanted to kind of dig deeper into this conversation today, surrounding that original question, I should say. So the question is, I've been in my role for a long time and recently went through a hiring and restructuring process at my institution. I can't prove it, but I have a strong feeling that my age played a role in how decisions were made. Now I'm trying to figure out how to respond. Should I pursue a formal complaint? Should I stay and try to move forward? Or should I start looking elsewhere? Dan, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think one issue is if you feel that this may have happened and may be an age issue, you may well be right. That's different than being able to prove that case. So that's where we need to think about the complaint we might want to follow through on, or whether you would do that. You know, in terms of discrimination kind of issues, and I have prior experiences way back in terms of a lawyer doing this in a position, again, way back. But this surface level of perception where you see someone else taking an opportunity that you were denied, it's clearly that you were qualified, and this person seems equally qualified or less than, and it's clearly you see a differentiation in age. So on the surface, it's easy to see it that way, and even the law recognizes this, what's called that prima facie case, where at that level, okay, we see that differential, but there's more to that. That doesn't prove it's because of age versus other factors, and I think that's where it gets really sticky and difficult. One thing I said in the article: why not at least consult with an attorney to at least get some initial information to understand the law there. But I know one thing that probably find is, first of all, the smoking gun. I didn't hire you because of your age. You're not going to see that too much. There's going to be a lot of circumstantial issues, maybe a lot of deeper documentation, a lot of behaviors and patterns that aren't going to be easy to prove. And that probably would be the kind of inquiry you would get in terms of, how can you establish this? What do you have? And not to mention that a lot of that documentation isn't going to be in your direct hands versus something that has to be looked into from the employer. Even one comment I made is, for example, if it's a hiring issue, and in higher ed, of course, so many decisions are made by committee, and who knows what's going on in those committee conversations. And I can imagine situations where subtle comments made, or just comments that on the surface seem fair enough as people are talking about candidates, but maybe implicit is some feelings that aren't really clear of why they prefer a younger candidate versus someone older. But you're not going to easily pierce that. You're not going to easily find that information to be able to prove it. So I think at that level is recognizing that the energy and the effort and the struggle of actually making that formal complaint, particularly as a lawsuit, may be something you'd really want to think twice about, not to mention the energy, the emotional cost, the drag on our lives versus trying to move forward, as hard as it may be. Those things are things to really take seriously. Now, the question was about complaint. So, of course, it could be going more informally, going internally to human resources, which would be a little different standard. I mean, they might be attentive to the law, but they might say, well, it's not just about what a lawsuit would say. It's about whether or not this is real or not. So the question is whether or not at least some exploration in terms of what the experience was, what's going on, and some explanation back to the employee in terms of what's going on might be due, might be good. But that's a different conversation maybe than just the idea of, do I have a case or not? I'm going to stop there if there's any other follow-up, but those are initial thoughts. They have some more thoughts too in terms of just how else you respond, but that's some initial thoughts in terms of the complaint itself and whether you would pursue that or not.
I think, Dan, you did a great job of kind of hitting like all of the bases of the article.
Mm-hmm.
The article was kind of divided up into easy to digest chunks. And you titled each one of the chunks. I think that's a formal writer's term.
Sure.
One of them was consider the toll it will take, and then to look at the big picture.
Right.
And the question actually was a very long question, so we cut it a little short. But there was, after asking the question, the writer said something, which was, at the same time, I'm dealing with a lot of disappointment and uncertainty about what this means for my career moving forward.
Right.
And to me, this is, well, first of all, completely understandable. And whoever wrote this question, you're super entitled to feel that way. And I think just about anybody in this situation would be feeling that way, particularly if you're over the age of 40 and having family pressures and other pressures on you, financial ones. It's really important what happens with your career. And if it's taking a sidetrack, that's a very, very scary thing for somebody as they get older and has those sorts of obligations.
Right.
That said, it's one of those things where it's a spiral down the rabbit hole is what I would call it. You can't spiral down the rabbit hole in these situations. You can't play the videotape too fast to get to that point. Now, stay out of the rabbit hole. Hanging out at the rabbit hole is absolutely fine. Acknowledging that and giving those feelings an identification and calling them out is so important. But try to stay out of that rabbit hole. If you get sucked into that, you're only going to make decisions based on what they look like in the rabbit hole. And we all know in the rabbit hole, they don't look like reality.
Yeah.
You need to stay above it to keep your head in the game. And then the final section being look at the big picture.
Yeah.
Really see that big picture of putting all these factors together. And I thought that was a wonderful, wonderful way to kind of bring all these different factors together.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, when I hear you say that, one is we dwell on it. Is this because of my age? Are they saying I'm too old, whatever? And then one of the worst things could happen too is like, well, maybe I am. maybe there's something they're telling me there. And that's a whole problem we could dwell on and overthink versus, you're as an older worker. I mean, I'm just going to say it. We offer something, I'm saying for myself, we offer something, we have wisdom, we have all these things that can be brought forward. But even in that part of the article, I say, without trying to make this controversial, are there things around this experience that says I can build from, that maybe I'm in a different place career-wise, that maybe the position I feel denied, I don't want to say this too hard, hardly, but is it that maybe there's something different a different focus, a different approach, a different kind of work. And maybe this is beginning to look at that journey because I'm in the right place to do that where I hadn't been before. Again, it may be the opposite. It may be truly you're entitled, of course. It's the position that you really wanted, didn't get, and you felt that that's what you want to push for and you're the right person for it. So how do you navigate that? Either way, it is a lot of perspective taking. It is a lot of thinking through in terms of how I navigate my current situation. Again, for most people, I would think it's like it's not going to be worth the energy to pursue something formally. What does that mean in terms of how I navigate now? Continue to work, continue to be professional, and maybe you'll work. I mean, we hear these too. One thing I even said in the article was it's probably difficult to move to that next position. At least that's a perception many older workers have in terms of, this job internally I was seeking was important because I don't see being able to easily move to some other organization to get a similar work. And that's perception. I think my age is going to be a barrier for that next position. At least that's what some of the research is suggesting. So that's a double whammy, perhaps. It makes it even more difficult to then take that step. But regardless, we have to sort of take stock, look at that big picture. If you're in a situation, at least we are working, manage it that way as we take the time to look at that next opportunity. No easy answers here, right? And not to take this lightly either, but those are some thoughts that we might hold on to then navigate as we think about how we've been treated and what that means moving forward.
Dan, you make great points there, and I think as humans, sometimes we dwell too much on the negative of the situation, like you said. Like maybe it's me. Maybe I'm am too old for this position, or maybe like kind of blaming all these outside factors. But then you could look at the other perspective of maybe there's another opportunity out there at a different institution. It's a better fit. I'll be happier. And so there's always there is a bright side. Again, I'm not trying to diminish this is a real issue, but like changing our mindset, saying, what if there is something better out there? So right. I don't know. It's again, I'm not trying to diminish this person's question or the issue, because it's a big question. It's a big issue. So,
well, I think too, if the first question or question is, do I do something formally? Do I do a complaint? Even internally, if we do it in a formal way, then that, frankly, even starting that process, even internally, can create all this consternation and distrust, frankly, that maybe you don't want. So obviously, how do I navigate? How do I think about short of that to make the best of my current situation? I mean, one thing comes to mind as I'm hearing you, Kelly, is the idea that without putting age, so that's the other thing. If you want to express a concern, other than maybe more formally with HR, for example, maybe not say it age, but just saying, hey, I am disappointed. And I'm seeing there's not full appreciation for what I've been offering. Even saying, I need a little help here. I need a little help to think about the work I'm doing. So maybe some honest assessment, not a critical assessment, but an honest assessment of the work, what I can do, what I can offer. I want to look at new directions. I still want to support this institution. And maybe simultaneously, as you're doing that, as you said, Kelly, maybe starting with just some conversations, some informational interviews, contacting people, learning about what other opportunities might be out there, not just randomly applying. It could be the same kind of thing. It's like, I just feel I'm in a new place and I want to explore new opportunities. And I think you can do that without putting out age is the reason, just saying that I'm professionally, I'm in a different place. And I just want to see what that might mean quietly, even as you feel disappointed about it, and that it may be because of your age in terms of what recently happened to you.
Thanks, Dan. This conversation was definitely informational. I hope it was useful to the listener that submitted it. So we appreciate having you on today.
Thank you for the chance to talk about this.
And thank you for listening. We hope you found this conversation as enjoyable and informational as we did. If you have a question for an expert like Dan or some thoughts about today's podcast, feel free to share them with us at podcast@higheredjobs.com or drop us a message on X @higheredcareers. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to talking again with you real soon.